I'm Andrew Lewman. I'm from the TorProject. We do online privacy and anonymity.
Superb. And here at the Broadband World Forum, there's this massive consensus and enthusiasm for moving towards the cloud. You strike very much a cautionary note about the cloud. I wonder if you could expand on what you see as its dangers and consequences.
Sure. So the cloud is going back to this idea of centralized computing, where everything is done on someone else's computer or in someone else's network. And what we would like to do is you should have control over what gets collected and how it's used, so that by default, transparency is the first step. What do they collect about you? What do they do with it? Who sells it? How do they buy it? Stuff like that. Then you can make better decisions on what you're giving somebody. And there should be options, for ability to make things private. Like, I do not want this sold. I do not want this collected. And if you're going to use the cloud provider should honor those requests. At the same time, we also see, so computing goes through these phases every 10 years where you go from the cloud to the edge, from centralized to the edge. And I think now we've had the cloud, there are lots of benefits to it, we get it. At the same time, things are moving back to the edge in sort of like a more decentralized, secure way, because you have control of your data, you have control of your device, you don't have control over some other corporation's devices.
Absolutely. And something you were speaking about today was we were discussing the paradox of the internet, but it's an international arena, a unanimous international force subject to national laws, and obviously that creates all kinds of complexities and paradoxes. How inevitable do you think an international Bill of Rights for the internet is, a real authority that has international jurisdiction?
I think that right now it's still in discussions. You have many organizations like the ITU and the United Nations and others, and ICANN, and I'll think of the other one in a second, but you have many organizations all trying to create sort of like, here's the global standard. And I don't think they're quite there yet. I think you have a lot of different voices. You have like the US and the Western Europe saying freedom, 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 and you have like Russia and China saying, well, we agree freedom within constraints. And those are trying to get those two societies and cultures to work together is going to take a lot of time. I think that the UN, and including Neelie Kroes, I think, from the EU, came out and said that, internet access is a human right. So there's no question about, I don't think there's any question globally about internet access, that people have the right to have internet access, and that's sort of the first step. What they have access to is the next step. Is it censored? Is it not censored? Is it neutral? Is it not neutral? These are all fine questions that'll continue to be debated. Obviously, being from America and the Western world, I find that more freedom is good, more freedom of expression, more freedom of right to assembly, things like that, things that are in Article 19 of the UN Declaration of Human Rights should be universal, and it shouldn't matter, because whenever something replaces the internet, you can have the same debate again. But if the fundamental right is there, then it doesn't matter what the medium is or the technology, it should just still be there.
And you also mentioned earlier how one of the things the TorProject is asked to do is to think about what the internet's going to be like in 5 years. And what do you think the internet is going to be like in 5 years?
Well, so we think about it from the perspective of how do you maintain your privacy. That with IPv6 rolling out slowly, but most of, many parts of Asia and Africa have IPv6 because they're just out of the v4 addresses. You can assign a v6 address or even range of addresses to a human for life. And then as that moves around networks, you know who that is because they're assigned their IPv6 address. It's there all the time. How do you maintain privacy in that world? Should you be assigning ranges to humans for life? I right now have like 4 or 5 devices on me. If they're all part of the same range, you always know it's me no matter where I am in the world. And there are some cases where I want that. There are some cases where I want. How do I not have that? That's just one example. With cloud providers, with the revelations of the NSA recording everything, and there's rumors other agencies are doing the same thing, they just haven't been caught yet. How do you maintain your privacy? What if you are a law enforcement officer and you need to go up against corruption within other agencies or whatever, your internal affairs? How do you do this, which is effectively maintain your privacy and anonymity? And those are the things we look at and what we research. What we'd like to see is a very accessible, very fast internet, obviously. I mean, everyone wants this anywhere in the world. Some countries like Sweden and Iceland seem to have solved the access and speed problems, but then there's discussions about what you get access to and do you censor or whatever. Much like the UK has been doing, is they're having discussion about copyright and how much do we need to censor, and should you opt in or opt out of adult filters, adult content filters, where a third-party private company defines what's on the filter. And if that's a mandatory thing by the government, then why is the third-party private industry deciding what gets censored or not? And how much do we have to pay to get off that list?
And finally, just this is your first visit, I think, to the Broadband World Forum. I mean, what's drawn the TorProject here, and what is its unique characteristic as an event, would you say?
I'll take that in reverse order. What's unique about it is that you have a lot of hardware and access, like equipment providers working on solutions. What's drawn us here is that we are looking to commercialize our technology. We're looking to partner with hardware providers. There was just an Anonybox campaign on Kickstarter that raised like $1 million in 2 days, which means there's a demand out there for a hardware-based Tor. And if we can find safe ways of doing it, if we can find partners willing to work with us, if we can take our software, put it into hardware, put it into customer premises, devices for whatever sort of customers you have, and centrally manage it and things like that, that will help Tor scale to the larger world.